walk. Adults, watch out for the little ones while driving this Halloween. With best wishes for a Halloween, this safety reminder is from Clintonia Eagle Theater in Clinton. Movies at the magic, we at the fun.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police blotter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
For the latest in Central Illinois agricultural news, visit IllinoisFarmRadio.com. Get updated information on markets, weather, ag news, local interviews with NAFB farm broadcaster Jared White, and much, much more. All at IllinoisFarmRadio.com.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the phone today, Dr. Lisa Taylor, is the superintendent of Heyworth Schools. Dr. Taylor, how are you this morning?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for making time for us as always. Good to have you on. And let's talk a little bit, Dr. Taylor, about, this time of year, it's budget time, and you and your peers are, kind of making those final adjustments to your fiscal year 23 budgets. And we'll see how those play out as the year goes along and all that. But Heyworth faces kind of an interesting budget. I don't want to say dilemma because it sounds like it's kind of a good thing. Talk about what's happening in your district.
Yeah, so we were able to finish last year in the surplus, which is good. Most of that was due to additional CPPRT, so the corporate taxes that we received. In most districts, that was a higher number for us. It was about $150,000 extra that we weren't planning for. So we finished pretty strong, and we have high estimates for this year, but we have a lot of moving pieces as we go forward. So we have a TIF district expiring, we have a potential wind farm coming, right? And then couple that with all of the impact of inflation. So fuel price is higher, food is higher. I think everything is higher technically. So trying to plan for all of that and estimate. We did take our budget to the board and get it approved, but we're assuming we'll have to amend next year because my food service, for example, is way over budget compared to where they were last year.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the way you're mitigating things, there's an expiring TIF fund in your district, Dr. Taylor. This is very complex. So kind of lay it out for us, and we'll dive into it from here. How about this?
Sure. So we have 6 TIF districts in Heyworth. And so those are different areas of the town that at one time a TIF was approved by the village board to develop that area, right? And so in Heyworth, most of those are subdivisions. And our first big one is primarily a subdivision that's expiring this year. And what happens is at the time that the TIF's approved, there were no homes there, right? So the EAV was frozen and the district was just getting a little bit of property taxes. And during the life of that TIF, which is 23 to 35 years, those taxes go to the village, and the village uses that money to incentivize developers and build all these homes, right? Mm-hmm. And so over time, the value of that, the EAV of that area has grown to almost $10 million, the majority of those property taxes going to the village. And the village does give the school district some back because as you build new homes, you have more students, right? And so our costs are going up. But as that expires, all of that EAV shifts back to the school district. So we could get really ahead, right, and capture all of those revenues that we haven't been getting in the past. But we are not planning to do that. We're planning to just take basically the portion we were getting before and a little bit more to cover some of the increased costs I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. But we think it'll end up, and I'll present at our November and December board meetings, it'll end up with us being able to drop our school district tax rate by at least 10 cents. So that's one of the goals of the board. And it's good to get to there. I just feel like everyone is squeezed financially, right, personally. And year after year, especially in McLean County, and especially in the past couple of years, the value of your home's going up. It's like every governing body, right, is taking more and more money, and everything you pay for is more and more expensive. And it's just been a difficult time. So any relief we can provide is, good for our community.
Yeah, kind of a perfect storm in that regard. But at the same time, Dr. Taylor, and this is very helpful because I know your district property taxes are relatively low, but just taxes in general in McLean County are relatively high. So how about that kind of dynamic?
Yeah, and I think, overall, we're comparable in McLean County, so our tax rate is similar to Tri-Valley and Leroy, but it's high, right? And property taxes are just outrageous, and especially in McLean County with everything else. And so that's why you hear people, and it's hard for people to understand. They don't understand there's 8 taxing bodies, right? And so the school district has a tax rate, and the library, and the fire department, and the village, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we just had a meeting last night. We're talking about this, and I'm like, people look at their bill and they look at the total of what they paid last year and the total of what they pay this year, right? And if that's higher, they're upset. And it's hard to figure out unless you're a mathematician, right? Whose rate changed? Why am I paying more? Did the value of my home go up? I mean, there's so many things that go into it, and trying to explain that to the public, I think, is difficult. I believe Heyworth residents understand, it's a great community, and yes, you have to pay taxes to get some of these things done, but we also need to be transparent and diligent in trying to make it as affordable as possible to live here, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, Dr. Taylor, as you were talking there, I got to wondering, given that the community, the city, was giving you back portions of those dollars, obviously to cover your costs, is that at all on your radar to say we'll give some of this back to them as a gesture of goodwill, or is that even something the city wants at this point?
Yeah, that's not something that's allowable, but all of us governing bodies, because of this EAV shifting back on our books, right? You've got $10 million. If my whole area is 100 million, now it's 110. Your levy's going up. So we're all going to have the hearing, right, about property taxes. It's called the Truth in Taxation hearing. And for people in the community, that looks crazy all at once. You have to advertise in a way. There has to be like a 1/4-inch black border so it draws your attention to it in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have all these taxing bodies, and it looks to the public like, oh my gosh, everybody's raising their taxes, when that's not necessarily the case, right? It's this tip expiring, trying to help people understand that. So unfortunately, we're going to be doing a lot of explaining for the next couple months, but we're going to try to make it as simple as possible for people to understand.
Are these issues that you get a lot of feedback on, if you will, from your community?
Yeah, property taxes usually gets attention. Of course, the most attention is on social media, but we always encourage people, and I'm not going to try to get into a property tax debate on Facebook, but we do encourage people to come in, meet with me, sit down, understand it, right? I'm happy to explain it and try to simplify it as much as possible, because I think a lot of the frustration is just, I'm already financially strapped and my taxes are high, right? Everything is costing more. And if we can help them understand, your taxes could be going down. It's very hard for me to say that as a school district, because while I only know my portion, right, I don't necessarily know what all of these other governing bodies are doing.
Really? You get people that get up in arms on Facebook, huh?
I know, it's so weird.
That must be a Heyworth thing, because I don't see that anywhere else. Dr. Taylor, as it relates to, though, just moving forward with this, what is that going to do for your budget? I mean, in terms of just, like you said, kind of easing those costs, and then at the same time kind of easing the tax burden on your taxpayers. I feel like this is kind of a win-win for Heyworth schools.
Yeah, it definitely is. The win-win situation for us is we're able to offset cost and lower property tax rates. 10 cents isn't huge, but if we can do 10 cents now and 10 cents next year, and then we have a wind farm that's supposed to be coming that is a significant amount of estimated revenue for, it's the largest part is in our school district, so it's over $1 million a year.
Wow.
Then we could take, a significant chunk off of our property tax rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we have classrooms that are really full. So we have some issues to look at in, moving grade levels around or doing what we can to make class sizes smaller with limited physical space.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of those things you just haven't been able to do because you haven't been capturing all your revenues, you may be able to do in the future.
Well, and we're in a time where facilities are really becoming a bigger, piece of the puzzle, if you will. I mean, we see schools to your north and to the south and east and west, and they're putting, nice turf on their football fields and upgrading their tracks. And I know you all just invested quite a bit of money in your facility, high school facility, and those things. So facilities are also becoming a larger, like I said, point of emphasis over the last several years.
Yeah, and the work, luckily for us, our big project, which was around $8 million, started right before the pandemic. So we kind of locked in our prices, and we were able to come in on time and under, on budget, which is amazing, because now I'm trying to do a few small projects, right? We're installing new marquee signs at the schools. We are trying to update our HVAC units in the junior high, but the bids came in 3 times what they're supposed to be because school districts, a lot of them are using their grant funds to do what you're talking about, right?
Mhm.
Tracks, things like that. But everything is coming in so high that you have to postpone that work, right? And so we didn't replace our HVAC units last year. We're going to bid it out again here soon. But we don't want to pay 3 times the cost, right? And so our maintenance staff probably doesn't love me right now, but he's doing a great job of just repairing as we can, right? We have really outdated equipment, but it's not affordable to the taxpayers for us to spend money on that.
What do you think? This was just kind of thinking out loud here. What do you think your project would have cost if you would have waited 18 more months?
Oh, I bet it would be at least a third higher. I mean, everything, we sit in superintendent meetings and talk about the way these prices are coming in. You know, part of the reason we met with the village last night is they're doing some infrastructure work, and it came in $800,000 over what their estimate was when they prepared it, right? And so those prices are just hurting everyone. And it's shocking to me because you hear all of this about the economy, right? But these businesses, not only are the prices coming in higher, but it's hard to get people to do work for you. They have so much work, you know, getting responses. I feel like we're pestering them, right?
Yeah.
Trying to pay you more than we ever would have before to do some work for us.
Yep.
And so we're really just looking at alternatives and what we can do on our own, because I just don't think it's fair to pay those kind of prices unless it's a crisis situation and we have to.
Dr. Taylor, wrap us up with, you mentioned the wind farm project that's ongoing in southern McLean County. That's going to be of great benefit. I think we touched on this briefly in our last visit. CPPRT dollars are also up in the district. So how about that and how much that's helping out right now?
Yeah, for us, it's huge. I mean, it doesn't sound like a ton of money in a $10 million budget, but $250,000 extra dollars, right? That's 4 or 5 staff members, if you look at it that way. It's huge. And it's allowing us to build up a little bit of, you know, reserve in our funds, which we hadn't had from some time. When I presented to the board, I said, you know, since I've been here, this is the largest fund balance we've had. And it's not because we have money in there that's planned for construction or anything like that. And so it's really helped us get to a place where we're a little more stable long-term financially, and we can, you know, really plan to be responsible with those funds.
Dr. Taylor, anything else on budgets that you want to talk about this morning?
Just that there's a lot of moving pieces, and if people are interested in learning more, they can always reach out to me. I'm happy to sit down with them and kind of explain all of these components and how it will impact the school district and the taxpayers.
That is Dr. Lisa Taylor, Superintendent of Heyworth Schools, my guest on the phone this morning. More to come with her on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
Let's check the opening numbers now at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Tuesday. I'm Jim Taylor for the RFD Radio Network. Corn opening slightly lower, beans higher, Chicago wheat starting lower. December corn, 6.80 1/4, down 1 1/4. March corn down 1 1/2, 6.86 1/4. May corn, 6.86, down 1 1/4. November beans starting the day, 13.78 1/4, up 6 1/4. January beans up 6 1/2, 13.87 3/4. March beans 13.96, up 6 3/4. December wheat 8.34 1/2, down 4 1/4. March wheat down 4 1/4, 8.54. May wheat 8.64 1/2, down 4. December bean meal 409.10, that's up 40 cents. December bean oil 72.13, up 26 cents. Looking at the energy market on this Tuesday, December crude oil 84.87, up 29 cents. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio Network.
Are you a friend of agriculture? This is Scott Baum from Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton. We're giving a $500 Friends of Ag discount to anyone that orders a new Chevrolet or Buick to be built just for you this month. Are you a friend of ag? You are if you're a member of any ag organization, employed by any ag-related business, including research, inputs, manufacturing, sales, and marketing, and of course, ag education. Come in, order yours today. BaumChevyBuick.com, right from the start.
Clinton Save-A-Lot owner Dave Jackson here with a supply chain update. While we're working as best we can to keep our shelves stocked with the items you need and want every day, We're experiencing never-before-seen interruptions in product availability and delivery, both through Save-A-Lot and our direct suppliers. In most cases, they can't run their production lines due to the lack of workers, plus a shortage of truck drivers. Despite all that, we're working to keep the meat, produce, and other products you buy in stock and on our shelves every day. Your Clinton Save-A-Lot appreciates your business, and we hope to see you soon.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Top of the morning once again. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest on the phone today, Dr. Lisa Taylor, Superintendent of Heyworth Schools. Dr. Taylor, let's dive into a conversation around social and emotional wellness in students. This is a piece of conversation that I've had a lot with your peers, and increasing issues in a lot of areas. I remember you told me last year and jogged my memory this morning that last year you had hospitalizations for students with mental wellness things going on in their life, where that doubled last year. How about this year? What are you seeing? Is that carrying over at all?
Yeah, I don't think we're seeing increasing, but we're definitely at a very high plateau, and maybe increasing in some extreme cases. That's the number one thing we're seeing, and then younger and younger children. So, years ago in my career, it seemed like you were always dealing with kind of high schoolers, maybe making a lot of decisions about college and life and jobs and, graduation worries and that sort of thing. And now it's younger and younger, and so that's scary. We do have a social worker really just dedicated to this. So she doesn't do special ed minutes at the elementary, but she just does social work for elementary kids. And then we purchased an additional day of social work for our junior high school, but I would be the first to tell you it's just not enough. The needs are higher and higher. Kids cannot escape things that maybe we dealt with as a kid at school, bullying, name calling, whatever you want to call it. Now they're exposed to that stuff 24 hours a day, right? Because they're on social media. They go home and they're on Instagram and Snapchat and whatever the newest tool is. And it's very hard for kids to regulate. And with hospitalizations up, what we've seen is it's not just that period they're in the hospital, right? There's a build up to it, and then there's a transition back to school. And there's just, trying to teach kids these self-regulation skills and, skills that will take them far in life. But also my staff has to be trained, right? These are issues we didn't deal with before. And so we're using a lot of resources and time, but that is definitely, our number one focus for staff and students right now.
Yeah. And, the crazy thing is you're talking about all these things happening. The worst part is, a lot of this originates outside the school building. And then, through the course of a day and a week, it spills into the school setting, which is interrupting, learning. And you just talked about it. You're forcing your staff to adapt to new circumstances that they're not familiar with, and you have to train them on those things. But just the fact that the roots of a lot of these issues are from outside the school setting, and then they bleed into the school setting, is kind of disheartening, I would think.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. And, I think some of the most difficult part, believe it or not, is parents who also don't know what to do, right? And so, yes, it's not our responsibility to teach parents, but when you're meeting with parents who are at their wits' end and they don't know how to help, right? They're kids. And yes, we can connect them with resources, but all of those resources are tapped, not just in McLean County, right? It's tapped everywhere. And the number of kids that go through SAS, which is like a mental health screening, it's just increasing. And I mean, it feels like every weekend there's a student being sassed, right? And then they're behind in their assessments. And it's just this issue. I don't know how we address it without more mental health resources in schools. Your high school guidance counselor, we have one counselor for 500 kids in the junior high and high school, right? Just doing their schedules and, signing them up for state tests and administering tests is all of her job and more. So you just don't have the staff to provide the support that kids are needing.
Dr. Taylor, what is this stemming from? What do you see? What is this stemming from?
Yeah, I see, for us, a lot of it, we have a lot of kids with anxiety, right? And so we have a lot of that sometimes is related to, overachieving, trying to be a perfectionist, social issues with their peers is how I would word it. So it's just hard to be, think about when we were in junior high, right? And then to be exposed to those things all of the time outside of school too. It's like they can never escape it. And we talked a little bit off air about substance abuse, but you don't want kids learning to cope the wrong ways, right? And so you're
Right.
also trying to do that and teach them about those things. And it just feels like that's a pot that's boiling over.
Well, Dr. Taylor, talk to me a little bit. You bring up a good point about the substance abuse issue. When it comes to those things, I know the Illinois Youth Survey goes out every year. I don't know if you get that data or not, how much you dive into those things. But from what I'm being told is, what you're seeing in your district as it relates to those mental wellness and emotional wellness things, that continues to be an issue. You talked about the self-medicating piece, kids self-medicating with alcohol and such, but then at the same time, you've got kids that are increasing their use of marijuana because it's legal in Illinois now, and access to it is much easier. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're not seeing as much of a ripple effect as some districts. I have several close friends who work in other districts, and one of them is a teacher in a district, and she was telling me when we met for lunch last week, she said, it's so weird because my classroom smells like I'm in Las Vegas. She's like, I never thought it would be like this. And I think it's because it's so accessible, right? And they see somebody else doing it or whatever, and they start doing it, and then it becomes a problem where they're, daily use of it. So we haven't seen as much of that, a little bit. But vaping, of course, is probably the number one issue we deal with on that spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to determine, some schools have, and we've just had a conversation about this at the board level, but a lot of schools are getting vape detectors, and they'll detect THC and, just nicotine and things like that. And it, they put them in their bathrooms, right? You're talking one district I talked to spent $75,000 on this, right?
Uh-huh.
So it detects the bathroom, and when you walk out, it takes a picture of the student. I mean, it's like a Ring doorbell for vape or marijuana. And so how much of this is our issue to police? There's there's some of that, and try to prevent kids from establishing habits that are unhealthy anyways. So that's a challenge we're all facing, and I don't imagine it's going away anytime soon.
Nope. It's going to be, it's just tough to hear some of these things, Dr. Taylor. And, I guess at a district level, you talked about potential, vape pen detectors. I mean, that's another cost that's, kind of unexpected for a school district. But in terms of education, I mean, do you have to increase your educational components about why, vaping and use of THC and even, early use of alcohol, things of that nature? Do you have to increase educational awareness around that as a district?
Yeah, we definitely do for students, and we try to, really have a lot of conversations with parents as kids are caught with vapes, and it's, as a kid would say, it's always somebody else's vape and they were just holding it for them, right? And, I just had that conversation with one of my board members about one of their kids several years ago, and it's like, that's the thing we hear, right? This wasn't mine, I was holding it for so-and-so. Well, you can't be in possession of it, right? But it's really talking to the parents about, how you keep an eye out for these things at home, because some of us as parents, you don't even know what that is until it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to educate kids and parents will continue to be a focus.
Well, Dr. Taylor, about 30 seconds here with you this morning. What anything else going on at a board level, district level? I guess send us out maybe on a positive note. What good is happening in your district?
Yeah, so we just received our official summative designations, which kind of your report card ratings by the state of Illinois. And for the first time, our high school is in the 10% of the state, and they are exemplary in the top 10%. And our other two schools are both commendable. So that is really good. And especially, after all we've been through for the past couple of years. So we'll be talking about that at our November board meeting, and then sharing a lot of information with the community and the media.
Fantastic. Dr. Taylor, always good to talk to you. Thanks for making time for us. Dr. Lisa Taylor, Superintendent of Heyworth Schools, is my guest on the phone this morning. Network news on the way on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
The Big 1520 WHOW Clinton, 92.3 FM, W222 BG Clinton, 106.5 FM, W293 DJ Normal Bloomington.
Breaking news at townhall.com. I'm Jeremy House. Rishi Sunak has become Britain's third Prime Minister of the year. Sunak clinched the leadership position Monday as his party tries to stabilize the economy and its own plunging popularity. There were several heated clashes during a raucous Florida gubernatorial debate last night that covered the COVID-19 pandemic, abortion, crime, education, and President Biden. Republican incumbent Ron DeSantis defended his critical race theory position.
I'm proud of our history. I don't want to teach kids to hate our country. I don't want to teach kids to hate each other. And the way to stop discrimination on the basis of